guys, how's it going? This is Mike from M&R. Today we're installing a dual 40-inch light bar onto the Chevy Silverado 2500 and 3500. We went with an amber on top and a white on bottom. This particular kit you can purchase in a single, double, or a triple configuration. The light bars themselves come in either amber, white, or white with Amber DRL. Step one, pop the hood, and we're going to be removing the top plastic cover. In order for the cover to be lifted up, you have to remove the hood latch. So I'm going to do that. Go ahead and do that first. It is a Torx key. Take out these two bolts, and you'll be able to slide this out. That's two. After you take the bolts out, you can go ahead and slide this forward, and it goes ahead and removes it. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to remove all the push pins that are holding the plastic cover. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In order to remove them, slide the screwdriver, pop them up, get a prying tool, and you should be able to just go ahead and take them out. Same thing with the other ones. Pry the corner. There's little notches that you can insert the screwdriver. Pop it open. Get the push pin up. Take them out. Guess I'm going to go ahead and not use the pry tool after all. These seem to be taken out fairly easy with a screwdriver. And the last one in the corner. Pop it up, pry it open. Now that we've taken out all the push pins, we should be able to just lift this up and get it out of the way. Next thing we want to do, we want to take out this trim pieces in order to get to the bolts that are holding the grill. So in order to pop these out, you have to be able to take off the flares. In order to pop the flares out of the way, there's two Torx bolts here that we're going to go ahead and take out. There's one. After we remove those two screws, we just pry this open. Just going to pull on it and pop it out. It's just held on clips. Alright, there's one more screw that we're going to have to remove, which is here on the side. The ratchet that we use is 9/32. Okay, pull the bolt out, and then we can start prying this out. So we usually grab it by the corner and start prying this up. And you can remove the whole thing. Set this aside. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the exact same thing on the other side. Take out the two Torx bolts that are holding the splash guard. Pull onto the flare. Remove this head. If you guys accidentally get one of these clips out, just go ahead and slide it in place. And we're going to do exactly the same thing we did on the other side. And just pry the corners. Separate and just pull. Here you can see the only thing that's held on is 1, 2, 3, 4 clips, and then the ones on top. So now you took off both of the trim pieces. Next we're going to remove the top bolts that are holding the grill. One, two, The next step would be to remove the bottom bolt here on each side. Right now this is on the driver's side, and that's going to release the grille from the bottom. And we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side.
Okay, let's do it.
So the last step to get this done is to pry the plastic trim pieces off of the frame, the subframe. I usually just pry with my hands, kind of lift it up. And then you're going to pull on the edges in order to separate the clips from these wings. There we go. Got this side free. Got this side free. And now you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're going to go ahead and separate. Remove the two trim pieces. It's the rubber trim pieces on the edges. So get in the way of our brackets. It's just held on 3 push pins. There is one on top, one in the middle, and one right here. With a screwdriver underneath it. And a nice prying tool in order to take out these clips. They're very easy to take out. And then you just take out these 2 flaps. One on passenger side, one on the driver's side. Now we're going to do the same thing on the driver's side. Pry it open with a pry tool. Take it out. You guys wanted to show you how our brackets look like. These are our brackets that we use for the single and the double and the dual 40-inch light bar kits. There's a passenger and a driver's side. Now that the trims are removed, we're going to go ahead and back out these top bolts. There's one on the driver and one on the passenger. These are the bolts that are going to be holding the M&R brackets. All you do is back it out, thread the M&R bracket, and put those back in. See, back those out. Throw them through the eyelet of the M&R bracket. We're not going to go ahead and tighten them all the way. We're just going to hand tighten them. We're going to do the final adjustment. See, it's kind of wobbly. We're going to do the final adjustment after we thread the light bars in between. And we're going to leave this so that way we can tighten it after the light bars are in. Notice that this particular vehicle does not have the active shutter system. You can see that they're designed on certain trim levels. But the way we designed our brackets is that the shutters are not going to interfere with the light bars. They're going to be sitting behind them. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to thread the light bar in between the brackets. And we're going to put the mounting screws. Then we'll determine where we want it located within the grille and adjust it up or down. Next thing we're going to do is put the grille back on so that way we can see what kind of adjustments we have to do to the light bar in terms of moving it on the rail up and down to fit the grille pattern. So it looks like we're going to have to bring it down a little bit. So the 3 options of mounting would be the bottom, the middle, or the top. There's a rail system here so you can adjust the light bar. You can even add multiple light bars into the system by putting a dual system, even potentially a triple. So we'll lower it a little bit and then we're going to go ahead and make final adjustments. We'll see how this looks and then I'll tie it down even more. Looks perfect. We're going to go ahead and tighten the side bolts as well as the bolts that hold the mount to the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and tighten the side bolts that hold the M&R bracket to the vehicle. And we'll tighten the light bar now that we like the position of where it is compared to the grille. Last test fit. Think it looks great. Now that we got the first light bar installed and we like the positioning, we're going to go ahead and add the second one the same way onto the rail. Thread the sides first, and just like the first one, I'm going to hand thread it and then I'm going to tighten it down after I like the positioning. Alright, let's try this out. I want to show you guys how you can adjust the light bars on the rail system. The bottom one we've installed and we've already aligned and tightened it fully. This one I can maneuver, adjust any position that I want inside the grill, and tighten it down after. I like personally the top grill, so I'm going to go ahead and raise it all the way up. All right, now that we got both of them tightened up, let's put the grill and we can test them. Now that we've installed the two 40-inch light bars into the grill of the vehicle, now it's time for wiring. Depending which light bars you've purchased, they will either come in 2 wires or 3 wires configuration. This is the dual function light bar, so it has 2 positive wires. There's one negative, there's a positive for the white, and there's a positive for the Amber DRL. If you purchased a single function light bar, you will just get the negative, which is the ground, and a positive, which is the red wire. We're going to go ahead and use a generic wiring harness to go ahead and connect this to the vehicle, because the vehicle did not come with auxiliary switches. The light bar wires are actually brought up underneath the grill, and they come out on the side here. Each light bar comes with a positive and a negative, red and black. Red is the positive, black is the negative. I'm going to show you guys how to use a generic wiring harness to connect 2 light bars. This particular wiring harness has 2 different switches, so you'll be able to control both light bars with one harness. It does have a little remote that you could use 3M tape for an easy installation. And I'll supply a link in order where you can buy this one on Amazon. M&R does not provide the wiring harness. You will have to purchase it from Amazon.
For the dual light bar, you use the same wiring harness?
For the dual feature light bars, you can connect, for example, the main light on one switch and the Amber DRL on the second, so you would use the same harness. In this installation video, we're going to be doing 2 separate light bars, so we're going to put 1 positive lead on each button. So let's see how this wiring harness looks like. When you take it apart, I'll show you exactly where each wire goes. So what we're going to do here, it comes with relays for both switches. This is a positive and a negative. It goes through a fuse as well, right here. And then it has 1 control wire, which is the skinny wire. Got tangled a little bit. Let me get it out. The skinny wire in the harness with a plug. This is the one that goes towards the switch. We're going to go ahead and extend this into the cab. The positive and the negative go directly to the terminal, and then the 2 leads go directly to the light sources. First thing I'm going to do is actually get the trigger buttons and extend them into the cab. And then from there I'm going to connect it to the harness by using this connector and connect it to the rest of the electrical. There's different ways of getting this wire inside the cab. You can either drill through the firewall and extend it that way. The easiest solution, there's a gap here inside the fender. You can fish this wire in through here to get it into the engine bay, and then you can actually mount it here for easy accessibility. So I have a piece of wire. You can use a coat hanger or anything that's fairly solid. So I'm gonna actually go from this side. I got a piece of wire. I'm gonna go ahead and feed this here into this opening, so that way it passes into the engine bay, and I'll be able to connect that wire onto here and feed it through. So you can use a coat hanger or a solid wire that doesn't bend very much. There it is. Can you grab it for me? Alright, so that's what we're going to use to pull the wire through. What I'm going to do, I'm going to attach this end of the buttons to the solid wire that we just passed through, and then we're going to go ahead and pull it through. Okay, one thing I like to do, I like to go ahead and just tape. You can use electrical tape. I personally had shipping tape next to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and fuse these together, so that way when I pull them through, this socket is going to go into the engine bay. Go ahead and pull it through. Slowly keep going. There we go. There it's coming. And now we get to undo the tape, and that's how we got that connection into the engine bay. So now we already have 2 buttons that are inside the cab. We're going to go ahead and connect this to that generic wiring harness, connect the positive and negative on the battery, and then connect the 2 light bar wires to the harness itself. Here's the plug. We have it in the engine bay. I'm gonna go ahead and take that wire back since we don't need it anymore. Hold on to this so that way I don't accidentally pull it through. All right, so next step of our installation, we're gonna go ahead and connect the power wire as well as a ground. The wiring harness has a fuse and has 2 leads. The black one goes onto the battery of the negative terminal, and the positive goes onto the positive terminal. I'm gonna go grab some sockets and we'll get this to work. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the bolt on the battery to connect the negative terminal first. Slide the eyelid through the bolt. Reinsert the same nut. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on the positive terminal. I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt, this nut. And we're going to go ahead and feed the eyelid through it and reinsert that same bolt. Okay, so now we have ground and power to our wiring harness. We can go ahead and close this up. The wire that we threaded into the engine bay gets plugged back into the wiring harness. Okay, and now the only thing that's left is to connect the light bars to these pigtails. So the next thing we're going to do is actually shorten these wires because the light bar wires are here. We don't want too much access wire in the engine bay. We're gonna cut the wires on the light bars, and we're gonna go ahead and cut the access wiring on the generic wiring harness. All we're gonna do is take the wires, we're gonna cut them off, we're gonna strip them, we're gonna go ahead and strip these wires. 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we have manageable size wires. We're going to do the same thing onto the 2 light bar wires that we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and cut them here. Take the sheathing off. Now we have manageable lengths, so we don't have to have a lot of different looms in the engine bay. Yeah, this is the M&R light bar. There's 2 different models. One is with a single function, which is just a positive and a negative. And this one is a dual function light bar that actually has Amber DRL. So it has a positive, a negative, and another positive for the DRL feature. I'll show you guys how I'm doing it. I'm going to slip a crimp connector on here and crimp it. I like to double crimp to make sure that the wire doesn't flip out. And on this light bar, we're actually going to use 3 crimp connectors because he has an extra lead for the DRL function, which is the blue wire. Alright, tug on them, make sure they're nice and solid. Good, good, good. Alright, so now that we're ready, to connect it to the 2 switches on the generic wiring harness. Alright, so for the first switch, we're going to go ahead and put black to black, and these are 2 grounds, and we're going to crimp it. We're going to go ahead and double crimp it as well because those leads are fairly thin, so we want to make sure we have a nice crimp on it. So now we're going to designate our white wire to be the power for the white light. So we're going to go white to red. When I crimp it, I'm going to hold it in to make sure that it gets a nice crimp. And then we're going to go our blue wire, which is the Amber DRL. We're going to connect it to the blue wire. And that's how we're going to get the feature of amber and white. The white is on the white wire, so that's going to be 1 switch. And then the blue is going to be on a separate wire, which is going to activate the amber. This one we're actually going to cap. That's the switch number 2. because the way this wiring harness works, it provides 2 power leads. So power button number 1 gets two leads, and power button number 2 gets 2 leads. Because we didn't use a second lead here, we only needed a white feature. It wasn't a dual function light bar. We're gonna go ahead and just cover this one so it's not being utilized. All right, now that we crimped all the connectors, we can go ahead and test our module. Press switch number 1. That turns on the amber features. And switch number 2 turns on the white light bar. Zip tie some of this wiring. See, the beauty of it is not too much wire in here, and it's a lot easier to work with, so you don't have to have looms and looms of extended wire. Alright, the next thing would be to actually hide this wiring and bring it inside the cab. So I'm actually going to insert it into this crease. We're going to use double-sided tape, so that way operation would be fairly easy. We will have these 2 switches on the band, and the wiring will get fed straight into the engine bay through the inside of the fender. So let me go get some double-sided tape. Okay, I'm going to peel this off and mount it in a position we want it to be. So let's say it's going to be here. I mean, you can put the switch anywhere you want. We wanted it on top of the dash, so that way the driver has accessibility to the buttons. This wire is just going to get pulled through. To hold it in place. When the door closes, shouldn't have any impact. This completes the wiring for the 3500 using a generic wiring harness off of eBay or Amazon. We're going to supply a link in the description of the video. Hope you enjoyed this video.